NASA promised a global reveal, the first close look at a rare interstellar comet observed by nearly 20 spacecraft. Instead, viewers were met with blurry, heavily cropped fragments and repeated assurances that it was just a comet. Why did the most monitored visitor in solar system history arrive shrouded in selective disclosure? The real story of 3I Atlas begins where the images end. On November 19, 2025, anticipation hung thick in the silence between presenter introductions. NASA had promised a flood of new images from Hubble, JWST, Mars orbiters, and more. Instead, the livestream cycled through a handful of faint frames, each one dissolved into the next. Washed out blurs, smudges barely brighter than the background, overlaid with digital markers or thick labels that obscured the view. The comet appeared as little more than a pale dot, stripped of context, stripped of detail. When viewers pressed for clarity, officials repeated the same line: "It is just a comet." Delivered each time with calm certainty, it echoed across the broadcast. With every reassurance, disappointment deepened. The promise of a historic reveal faded into indistinct pixels. Interstellar objects are not routine visitors. In over 4 centuries of telescopic astronomy, only 3 have been confirmed: Oumuamua in 2017, Borisov in 2019, and now 3I Atlas. Each arrival was a rare opportunity, capturing intense attention from scientists and the public alike. When Oumuamua was spotted, agencies released images and preliminary data swiftly, even amid debates over its nature. Borisov's passage brought a steady stream of high-resolution imagery from Hubble and ground-based telescopes shared within days of capture. These events set a precedent. Raw data, even imperfect, reached the public quickly. By the time 3I Atlas appeared, expectations were high. Nearly 20 spacecraft observing it should have meant unprecedented transparency. Yet mission engineers emphasized the challenges of imaging a faint, fast-moving object across millions of kilometers. Each instrument, from Mars's Mastcam Z to Hubble and JWST, faced limitations: motion smear, low signal-to-noise ratios, and the need for careful calibration. Officials described painstaking processes: stacking exposures, compensating for drift, filtering cosmic rays, and aligning frames to the comet's shifting position. Every step carried the risk of introducing artifacts or erasing subtle features. The images shown were early products, chosen for reliability over drama. NASA stressed that scientific integrity required patience, even if that meant withholding data until every pixel was verified and every uncertainty quantified. Behind the scenes, spectroscopy teams flagged anomalies that would have dominated headlines under normal circumstances. High-resolution scans hinted at unusually high carbon dioxide levels. Nickel lines appeared in preliminary spectra, without the expected iron signatures. Polarimetry measurements recorded values outside the range of any known comet, suggesting dust grains unlike those in the solar system. Trajectory analysis indicated a kinematic age exceeding 5 billion years, older than the Sun itself if the models held. These extraordinary hints were mentioned only in passing during the broadcast, bundled into a few sentences, quickly set aside. Scientists who gathered the data were backgrounded, their work reduced to bullet points rather than questions worthy of exploration. The contrast between the magnitude of the information and the faint, cropped visuals was jarring. Within minutes, frustration erupted online. #TruthPoll trended across social media as amateur astronomers demanded access to the promised images. Reddit space forums exploded with side-by-side comparisons of NASA's cropped frames versus sharper amateur captures, fueling suspicion that detailed data remained behind closed doors. Journalists pressed NASA's Public Affairs Office for raw frames and calibration logs from the 20 spacecraft. receiving uniform responses about ongoing calibration, context, and promises of eventual release. A leaked summary of NASA's November 12th media strategy, though unauthenticated, suggested a plan to avoid speculation, reinforce that it was just a comet, and defer anomalies until peer review. In the absence of hard evidence, public debate shifted from technical limitations to institutional motives, widening the gap between agency communicators and a public convinced that something critical was being withheld. Today, the sharpest images and strangest data remain unseen. When cosmic visitors cross our skies, transparency isn't just about science. It's about trust. The universe keeps its secrets. Should we? One tweet from TruthPoll captured the tension. Hubble images of tiny asteroids millions of kilometers away are crystal clear. But for 3I Atlas, a so-called Manhattanized comet, NASA had released only faint blurs. Side-by-side comparisons highlighted a stark contrast. Amateur equipment revealed a visible pale in structure, while billions of dollars in space agency telescopes delivered a pale smudge. The unspoken question hung in the air. How can backyard gear show more than a multi-billion-dollar space program? NASA did exactly what many expected. They didn't answer serious questions. They left the world with smudged, pixelated snapshots taken by instruments worth billions. For some, it felt like a subtle insult to the public's intelligence. So, what do you think? Was NASA merely cautious, or were they deliberately hiding something? What's your take on 3I Atlas and the missing images?